It is Friday. Happy Friday, June the 5th. And because it's Friday, I'm really pleased to have our Member of Parliament, John Brassard, here with me today to give me an update of what's going on in Ottawa and what the federal government is doing in response to COVID-19. Hello, John. How are you today?
Hi, Mayor Dolan. How are you doing today?
Great. So tell us a little bit about what's happened in the last 2 weeks since we've talked from the federal perspective.
Well, I was in Ottawa this week for 4 days of the COVID-19 committee, and things, it's not Parliament, it's a committee, so things are a little bit different. But we really spoke a lot about municipal infrastructure this week in the House of Commons during this committee. We talked about some of the infrastructure projects that have been announced. The issue of the gas tax formula advancement came up this week. And I also was able to do a member statement where I gave a shout out to some of the great work that community organizations and faith-based organizations are doing in the town of Innisfil, like the Innisfil Community Foundation, the Innisfil Food Bank, and the Rotary Club of Innisfil as well. So props to them, and their names will forever be in the history of Parliament in Canada under Hansard. So it was fun to do, but it was great to recognize those groups as well.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. They're local heroes and they deserve all of the kudos that we can give them. And I don't know where we'd be here in Innisfil if it wasn't for groups like that. There was also an announcement this week about accelerating the gas tax. And I heard from a couple of people who thought that maybe this was new money that municipalities were expecting, and that $2 billion was the good news story. And actually, it was money that we'd already anticipated and that we knew we were getting. We get the gas tax every year, and we love the gas tax. For Innisfil, it's about $1.1 million a year. We know we can count on. It's predictable, and we can budget for it, which we have. But the announcement from the Prime Minister was actually to accelerate it and give it to us early, but it's no new money. So any idea of when municipalities might be able to get some funding? I can tell you, we're staring down about a $250,000 deficit this year, but I know bigger cities are really hurting, and just wondered what your perspective was about funds for municipalities.
Well, I know you and I spoke, I think, about an hour after that announcement was made. And, there's been disappointment right across the country. We've been hearing from mayors that as great as it is to get the $2.2 billion, but it was expected, and it was just advanced this time. So, right now, according to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, there's anywhere between a $10 to $15 billion shortfall on the operating side for municipalities because of the lost revenues by closing recreation centers, all of the lost revenues that municipalities have been facing. And you mentioned yourself about a $250,000 deficit. So when you and I spoke, we talked about ideas. There is a large envelope of funding within Infrastructure Canada over a 10-year period of roughly around $180 billion. So there might be some maneuverability within that funding envelope to help out municipalities. It's already been budgeted for. I spoke to Mayor Lehman, who sits on the FCM board, as you know. I mentioned that in our conversation. And so just to try to come up with some ideas that we can give the government to assist municipalities, because municipalities are on the front lines, and they will be on the front line of economic recovery in this country. And the infrastructure deficit that exists, it's not just the operating deficit that municipalities are facing, but there's a significant, as you know, infrastructure deficit that will help propel through construction jobs, et cetera, through supply and all of the things that goes into the construction process, where municipalities will be able to help. The other thing that we can look at too quickly, and I know we're short on time here, but is the issue of interprovincial trade, opening up the provincial boundaries and barriers that exist to trade in this country. Again, the amount of money that the potential amount of money for that is about roughly around $150 billion of unleashing the economic opportunity by removing some of these interprovincial barriers will help not just municipalities, but will help our country as well.
Absolutely. I always find it funny that I can buy wine that's produced in Australia, but I can't buy wine that's produced in British Columbia.
And British Columbia has some of the best wines in the world, as we do here in Ontario. And so why not give people from British Columbia that same opportunity to enjoy Ontario vintners as well? So there is a tremendous amount of potential as it relates to interprovincial trade, taking down those barriers, $150 billion in economic activity. And we have the ability as a government to do that. I know we've been pushing for that for several years now.
Thank you. Thanks very much, John, and I hope you enjoy your weekend. Thank you, Innisfil. Be safe, make smart decisions this weekend, and we'll talk again on Monday.
Thanks, Mayor Dolan. Have a great weekend, everyone.